I'm a writer too, and I'm a poet. And
That's peace. That's peace.
I wanted to ask you about your exercise as far as that goes. Like what with writing goes.
When
so is it a free write or you have like a focus and you just letting it go?
Well, let me tell you. Obviously, the scholarly works, music scholarly works, journalism, poetry, verses, right? These are all things I write and everything. I let the creativity come to me. So what I write in my journal mainly is basically ideas about my life, what I've dealt with, and also the major crux is my commentaries and all the books I read. So all the books that I read, I have a whole app with all the books. And I have also a place where I put the books that I read already that I'm going to write about. And I just write about all the notes I took and everything like that. I actually write whole passages that I want to remember, and I write them all over again in the book. You know what I mean?
So you read them and you write
and I write, if it's worthy and I want to remember it. Even if I own the book. It's just exercise. It helps me remember these things. Because before, when I started to teach, though, I couldn't keep these books. I didn't have them. So that's how I started to get into that. Then, when it comes to like creative stuff, most of my creativity is basically just reading. I read a lot, you know what I mean? So I let the creativity just be tapping into what I know. So I feel like creativity is based on what you know and how you interpret it, you know? So I just interpret it the way it goes, you know what I mean? And because, look, I'm a music journalist, so I'm listening to creative works all day. You know, I really listen to music all day. Like if you're with me and there's no music playing, then you go, "What's wrong? You okay?" You know, There's music always playing though. You know what I mean? And then usually I'm writing about hip hop, so that's not even the music that's playing unless I'm working on it. You know, so I'm playing all types of other music. You know, so I'm always trying to absorb other things, and I think that's one of the best ways to be creative is just by absorbing a lot of art. You know. Like I say a lot of times, my brother he's an actor and he has a huge film collection. And he gives me access to it. So I have access to like 2,000 movies. He adds to it all the time. Along with all these other apps that have tons of movies, you know? So all this creativity, I just try to absorb it. You know what I mean?
Let me add, you inspired me, right, in terms of like writing. I said, you're fucking journalist, right?
You definitely are, guys. You definitely are.
Right, so
yeah.
you know, I have an app on my phone, like the notepad on my phone, right? And you know, so when I'm watching movies, I'm taking notes. When I'm in class with you, like I'm taking notes, right? When I'm on the train, I'm taking notes. And then I like sum it all up and I put them all together.
Yeah.
And I put them to the side, right?
Right.
And then, you know, and then there's also like, you know, I was telling you about the whole chat GPT thing, and now to analyze this, right? And it gives me back you're saying this, that, and third, right? So it's like having a conversation back with the chat GPT.
Interesting.
Right, but it's all start rooted in stuff like my stream of thought from, you know, what I'm writing.
Right, man.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, like the Parliament, I recorded the Parliament, the last Parliament, so I'm just taking notes. So then I put it in there, as I'm editing, and said, okay, give me a rundown of what I just said, you know, what I just wrote, you know, I just shared as far as, you know, what I wrote about the Parliament. And it'll give it back to me, like, you know, and put it in order, you know what I'm saying? So, like I said, but a lot of that's like inspiration from like you.
No, it's P.E.A.C.E, yeah. I'm always telling everybody that they should write though.
Yeah, right.
And when I do, it means you should, you know.
But I see the power in it.
Yeah,
the
and you know, all the students, I tell them to have a journal and write about their life, because if you see yourself as a true and living God, whose life is better to write about?
Right.
Nobody's. And even if you're writing just poetry, if that's the main goal to get to poetry, you still should try to write prose. They'll come out as beautiful as anything else though.
Define prose?
You know, prose is just really like your thoughts about things, long running sentences, paragraphs of your ideas. You know what I mean?
That's what I do. Like,
right? So those should get written down too, because they can be written poetically as well.
Right.
They can lead to poetic, or even if you just say, I just care about sharing poetry, then the great lines could be extracted. So if you write prose and you just write like, let's say, my experience here this day. Like, let's say you went on a date that was totally horrible, but it was like interesting at the same time. You know?
You write about it, right?
Yeah, you write about it though. That has a lot of jewels in it. And then let's say I only care about poetic forms and the stanzas. I only want it to look like that. You can extract. You may drop a jewel in that format. It's always good to try other formats. You know what I mean?
I was dealing with a wisdom who challenged me to journal like for like 30 days straight, and for like a long time, like I guess my gripe with it was like I was kind of scared of it actually, because I was like, yo, I can hide behind metaphors, I can hide behind similes, you know, stuff like that. When I'm just like saying exactly how
That's
I
one of
feel.
the reasons that I have students write a journal, because your word is bond means the most to you. And the word is bond that is broken the most is the one that you give yourself.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so if you have a habit of keeping your word is bond to yourself, one of the best ways to see that, to see it outright, is to see you writing in your journal. Write about the things you expect, write about the things you intend to do, and you can see, you know? But it's okay to write a journal. And also too, right? The journal shouldn't just be over emotionalized. It shouldn't just be about what you're experiencing, this and that. You know what I'm saying? I don't do all that. Sometimes I don't even keep those thoughts in there.
Right.
And I remember that because I was thinking about, I started writing a journal because I couldn't keep all these books I was taking from the library. Because I always remember the book that made me get a journal, Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams. I started to rip out every page that was good. And then by the time I got to like page 100, I was like, yo, I can't hand this book back. It's going to be like this. It's going to be like a pamphlet. Because every page was like dropping it. So I said, I'm going to have to just start writing things down. You know what I mean? And I was in college. I can't afford to just make photocopies of everything. So that's when I started to write the journal. So a lot of my journals, the things that I learned, the things that I come across, you know, understandings that I have. As God, your journal should be filled with understandings. The activity is like, what's today's mathematics? And you go through it. But understandings that you have during the day, they are worthwhile. They need to be collected. You know? Sometimes I write in the journal, I don't know enough about this. I don't know anything about this. You know what I mean? These are things to write down in your journal. They're journalizing your life, your ideas and stuff. And they teach you how to be more honest with yourself. That audience that you speak to could be yourself, or could it be someone else in the future, or your children. It doesn't matter who you're writing to. You know?
Jeez.
But it's something that a good writer should always do. You should always have a journal. There's too many ideas, too many things you experience, though. You know what I mean? To not have it like that. You know?
I mean, nowadays they don't really talk too much or build about the book of life, right?
Yeah.
Right. The
Yeah.
book of life is like your journal.
Yeah. Because your book of life is not just supposed to be like a collection of plus lessons and 120 that you get, but it should be a collection of your notes. That you get in the class that you win, when you builds with your enlightener, whoever it is, right? But it also should be a collection of your understandings. Because when you have an understanding, right? Let's say you get an understanding on a degree. Man, memorize that. That's your go-to. That's what you should know. Memorize your understanding. If it's shown and proven and it's right and exact and it's yours, you need to memorize it.
Okay.
Some people don't remember their own understanding. And I remember this. I remember having to say this because I had a student that he would write me an understanding for every single class. He'd write me an essay. But then when I had him build on the 1 to 10, he quoted perfectly everything, and he started to build, and I was like, okay, give me a build on the understanding degree. I remember it was the understanding degree. And he was stuck. I said, how you don't have an understanding? I've been with you long enough that you've been here in the 3rd class, and I have essays from you from the 3rd day of the month.
He didn't memorize his own understanding.
And I was like, yo, you need to memorize your own understanding, because that's builds you up. And I learned seeing it, because look, remember Dumar, he memorized everything. Everything. He had all these plus lessons, national statements, he memorized them. He did not need them to sift through. You know?
Do you know who Dumar is?
No.
Dumar Wadi was one of the great gods in this nation. He was the only official national spokesperson of this nation, you know? And he went to colleges speaking about this nation, representing us, and he just was an incredible builder, you know? And he wrote a lot of plus lessons, meaning his understandings, right?
So that's a plus to me,
That's what a plus lesson is, yeah.
Yeah, anything outside of 120 lessons, you know.
Right, yeah.
Masai is also, you know, quoted as saying that, you know, a plus degree is, you know, your GED or your high school diploma. That's also a plus degree. Right? But you know, yeah, plus degree it's like your understanding or somebody else's understanding.
Right.
Like I just shared an understanding with you about understanding, right? You know, I said and culture.
Right.
So that could be a plus degree.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. But all of that, God, all of that. You know what I mean? Like I said, disrespect the storehouse. That it's limited. That the mind is just this or that. It has endless amount of things. You know what I mean? Because one thing could make the other thing greater. You know what I mean? Yeah, it can make the other thing greater. You know? But God knows, I only started actually recording any kind of raps or songs or anything just a few years ago.
Really?
Yeah. You know? And it actually has made all the other writing I do even greater. You know? So, obviously, making music makes me it gives me a new perspective as a journalist, right? Because I've been on both sides, and right? And all of the great journalists I studied that I really loved, they all actually were musicians, you know what I mean? Like, they actually became musicians, or they were already.
Like all the best analysts, boxing analysts, fighters.
Yeah, you know? And of course, you could be a great music. Listen, it's my own ego, but I was a great music journalist before I wrote a rap. You know what I mean? Right? I already did it for like almost 20 years. Over 20 years before I rapped. You know what I mean? But the thing was is that you add on. You take all the avenues of creativity. You know what I mean? You know, just like having to lecture here every week, because I've been teaching this class since 2000. Having the lecture here every single Thursday for the last 25 years, that adds on to everything else I do, right? So it gives me, so if someone thrusts me, because they do, thrust me, hey, we want you to speak in front of these people, I don't really get nervous. There's nothing more nerve-wracking than building in front of the older gods, scrutinizing your builds and stuff. I could go anywhere, shit. I could go, you know what I mean? Like this. I've been on radio, I've been on people's shows, nothing, I don't get nervous. There's nothing like this. Nothing. And if people don't know, they didn't build here. They didn't have to get their 120, get their flag here. You know what I mean? You know? I had to quote the whole 1 to 40 and build on it. With Knowledge Me, my enlightener there. And then everybody came in. Kaleem, Firstborn Prince. I think Aleem came. Everybody just came walking in. I was like, oh no. Oh man, this is going to go horrible. You know what I mean? You know what I did? I'm nearsighted. I don't see perfectly from far. I took off my glasses. It's just gonna be me, what I'm seeing. And I didn't pay attention. I just built, you know what I mean? They asked me a question. I didn't say, that's the mighty firstborn prince. I just answer the question. Answer the question. You know what I mean? And I prevailed, you know what I mean?
Do you know any of those names that you mentioned?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah. Firstborn Prince. I read this book. It's called Why I'm a 5%er. He's mentioned in it.
Okay. Firstborn Prince did not write that book.
That's what I was about to say. Like wait. He didn't write the book.
Okay. He's mentioned in it.
He's mentioned it though. Okay. And remember, those aren't good books though. That was written by Michael Muhammad Naino. It was a charlatan.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why I'm a 5%er. Yeah. Okay. So I read that book too. So just in case, And I told him,
Where'd you get the knowledge from?
I didn't know that my uncle was a god, but he always said peace when he would greet me when I was a kid and stuff like that. So like he was supposed to be my enlightener, but he was kind of half stepping on it. So I did it myself.
So you did it yourself, meaning you?
I got a book and I studied, and every time I meet a god, I build.
So your lessons, where did they come from?
I got the 120 over Amazon.
Where?
Over Amazon.
Okay, yeah.
Amazon will get you a package though, but they can't send 120. Yeah.
So this culture, right?
Yeah.
It's not a culture that you get offline, right? It's not a culture that you get on the internet or anything like that. Right? Like you did the right thing by coming here and building, right? So you say you're all the way at the 140, right? And like is there an order that you went into, or how did you?
I did the mathematics first, did the alphabet, did the 1 to 10. It's all in order in the book.
Okay, so what?
What book is it again?
It's
It's that yellow book?
no, it's black. It's 120 degrees. I forgot the author, but
Yeah, nah.
God Supreme?
maybe I think so.
Nah, that.
Yeah, those.
Listen, what you have to do, because I had some degrees when I got here and I met my enlightener knowledge me, right? You have to find who it is that will be your enlightener, the person to take you through 120. Obviously, I'm here. I offer myself, but that's your decision, not mine. Okay? And you have to go through all of it all over again. Because guaranteed, whatever you would show me, I'll find you a degree that's wrong in there. Guaranteed. It just never fails.
I was talking to.
If you got that shit off Amazon, it's got a wrong degree in it. Because all the other books, that yellow book that says the 120 got the flag on it, that shit, I read that. That shit has mad degrees wrong in there. Yeah.
I was talking to God outside, and I thought I quoted a degree directly in knowledge, understanding when it said what brings rain out snow earthquakes.
What brings rain?
You said what brings, right?
What brings, right?
Yeah,
So,
it's wrong.
The
Yeah.
build one was like what makes, right? And I thought that.
And you said no, the 13th was what brings, right? Yeah, but you have it wrong, because that's when Allah the Father had it. He changed that degree to say but brings rain, hail, snow, and earthquakes. Okay. And you got to know the reasons why and all that. That's why you have to have enlightenment.
Let me ask you, okay, so your second degree of the 1 to 10, do you know that?
Who is the colored man?
Okay. Go on.
Is the Yakubian?
No, not
Yeah.
Kubian.
I mean,
Okay, so now, so when
the Caucasian white man, Yaku grabbed the devil. That's what's up in the book. Yaku grabbed the devil.
of the planet Earth, okay, so, because some degrees say it's coming to planet Earth.
Right.
You don't have that.
No.
Okay. I just wanted to know but yeah, so it's a Caucasian white man, all Yaku's grabbed the devil of the planet Earth. So yeah, you would want to, even though you have that history of buying it online, you would want to get, like I said, with somebody who's been educated, who call it educated.
Yeah.
Who's going to walk you through it. Who's
Yeah,
gonna,
I'm alone educated. I can't make it out here often because of work, so it's like.
no, it's even still, like even if it's on the phone.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if you came here, the fact that you came here, that shows, you know.
Yeah, because you don't have to be here every day.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But yeah, you got to find somebody, and we're here, so it depends on you. You know?
So where you from?
The desert.
You're in the desert. Okay, so you know the language, right? You know
Right.
you know some of the things that. And you say your uncle was half seven.
He was far teaching me.
Okay, but you got that far, and you can you say he's a God. He's always in the same piece. Now you actually examine him, right? And, well, peace, uncle. He says peace. He uses peace.
Right.
You know, how do you see peace?
Yeah.
You know, I got this book somewhere. You know, what do you think about it? Right now, you can kind of visit his mind
Right.
and give it. You know, 'cause now you know something, right? So you come here and now you kind of you exercise it. The idea is like to you get it word of mouth as opposed to just online, or studying online. There's a lot of things that you're gonna probably look at like that. What or what? You're gonna kind of like you don't know what is the cultural context of it.
Right.
So now you have a better.
So why would you change the but versus what?
Well, but is the so it's like saying, you know, it's like putting a doubt, right? So what brings rain, hail, snow, earthquakes?
Yeah, when Allah changed it, his reasoning was that from what I learned from Firstborn Prince, every time he would ask the gods if they did what he asked them to do, they would always say but. So he said but brings rain, hail, snow, earthquake. See? And those little quirks and stuff though have to deal. You have to You have to learn the details of what Allah was trying to do, what He actually achieved. You know what I mean? His intentions. You need to know all these things, and you're not just memorizing the 120. Because really, those lessons come from the mosque. They're not teachings for us to believe. They're teachings for us to utilize and analyze with. It's a tool. It's a supreme tool. You know, and if you don't get it from someone directly like that, and in communication, you know, then you won't know why you're saying certain things. It is certainly arcane. Arcane meaning that it's something that you have to know the reasons why certain words and what meanings are, and they're not just conventionally where they could be looked up in the dictionary for context.
Right.
Right?
So did you get to your 136? You know that degree?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know the 28th degree of the 136?
It's, I got it right now. They I'm nervous coming out.
Oh, that's peace, guys. Yeah.
But I got it.
Okay.
They was, yeah, because they thought they was gonna get gold.
No, you kind of skipping over something there. So, can the devil fool Muslim go not nowadays? You didn't say the devil fooled them. How long?
Yes, 379 years ago. Cause he thought he was
No,
gonna. The trader made a deal that he would receive gold for his labor more than any
You
other
have a
country.
deal? That's what it says. A trader made a deal?
Yeah.
Okay, so have you ever heard of deal? A trader made a deal?
No.
That he received gold more than he was earning in his own
I mean,
country.
you're close, right? So a trader made it. A trader made an inter-orientation
Into orientation.
stating he will receive more gold for our labor in his nation. And we will receive more gold for our labor in his nation.
Alright.
Right, so some people might even argue it was the word. Have you heard of interpretation too, right? The trader made it.
Yeah, that's wrong too, though.
Right.
Oh,
So,
it says interpretation.
oh, yours has interpretation. Okay.
Yeah, that's
so
wrong
you said
too.
deal, right?
I'm paraphrasing.
No, you don't want to paraphrase, right?
Yeah.
That's
Just say you don't know the degree. Paraphrasing is not. You have to quote exact, though.
Right. So
Even if you stumble, just know, like, if you don't have it, you don't have it, okay?
Right.
But yeah, interpretation. Yeah, it's not interpretation. Though. It's like the
no,
word
it's not,
doesn't even.
but there are those who have
It
it.
does, yeah, and it's like it doesn't even make sense in the context now when you say interpretation.
because inter-orientation is
I thought that interpretation made sense because we didn't speak his language, or he didn't speak our language.
Nah, because interpret means that it's your version of stuff. That's not what was being shared. Into orientation, there was something specific being shared.
Alright.
You know, right? Interpret also implies that they translated. That's not what they did
That's
either.
what I thought.
Yeah, that's not, no. It'd be incorrect. Inter-orientation means two groups of people have different languages that they speak, and one is sharing and indoctrinating an idea to the other.
convincing.
Yeah.
It's a convincing. Like you're
Mhm.
convincing somebody.
Yeah, so it's an old word that you don't see unless you look it up in really old sociological works. I think I've only found it like 2 old books. You don't see it used, but
So like Langston Hughes was right.
nah, way before. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, way before. But
Well, you talking about like inter-orientation was before.
Yeah.
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 He was like the 20s, right?
yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, it was a little older than that, but
Like 1800s, like the dictionary. Like you talk about old English dictionaries.
yeah.
Right? Now, so this goes into the context of the authors of 120 Lessons, who's W.D. Farr and Elijah Muhammad, right? And their education, you know what I'm saying, and you know how he came across that word, why he was using that word, right? You know, and it predates a lot of what we have now, so like, you know, it gives you an education into the English text.
So how did the words get changed over time, like from orientation?
Well, I mean, because
There's an oral tradition.
Yeah, all
People didn't write it down. They were just quoting it to each other. And they weren't quoting it in sets. They were quoting it like degree by degree. So it's pretty remarkable how close it kept.
So
you know?
Farr and Elijah, they didn't write it down?
No, they did.
Oh, they did.
But
they
the
did.
way the gods got it,
Yeah.
they were just quoting it to each other. You know? And remember, so you know, when the father left the Nation of Islam, he did something that the other Muslims didn't do. He memorized it. So he was not walking with a pen and with a paper written down what these teachings are. He had already memorized it.
Right. So he wasn't giving it on
Yeah.
to the young. He was
Yeah.
quoting it to them.
So that's why he urged the firstborn to memorize it.
Right, that's why our nation.
He urged them to memorize it because that's what he was doing.
Right, yeah.
If he memorized it, no, you learn it and I'll tell it to you.
Right.
They wrote it down and they were encouraged to write it down as students, right? You're gonna let a student be a student.
But to study and to memorize.
Yeah.
Right.
And a lot of them didn't because some of them couldn't read. Like, why Jamel couldn't read? You know? So.
You must do your own research, as I did.
If Mega did this.